Hello, everyone. Welcome back, the podcast where we gather to share stories of life, love, and humanity. Are you blind, old man? Where the hell are you looking? Do you have any idea how much this scratch is worth? You couldn't afford to fix this if you sold your miserable life. The shrill, contemptuous shouting echoed through the air, shattering the morning peace of the exclusive, tree-lined street in a wealthy Los Angeles suburb. Under the blazing California sun, a middle-aged man in a slick, tailored suit, his hair perfectly coiffed with gel, stood with his hands on his hips, his face red with fury. He was pointing a finger directly at a frail, weathered old man. That man was Kevin, my husband. And the old man, cowering in front of the gleaming black Mercedes-Benz S580, was, to my eternal pain, my own father. Robert. Welcome, everyone. People often say that a daughter belongs to another family once she's married, that she becomes a guest in her own parents' home. But never in my wildest nightmares did I imagine that my own kindness and patience would nurture a monster right inside my own house. A monster who would inflict such shame and humiliation upon my father that it tore my very soul apart. It was a Saturday. My dad had taken the early Greyhound bus from his small farm in the Central Valley to visit his daughter and granddaughter. He brought with him 2 large canvas sacks, brimming with gifts, freshly harvested vegetables, baskets of ripe peaches from his garden, a dozen organic eggs carefully packed in sawdust, and even a smoked turkey he'd prepared himself. One he'd been raising for a year just for this occasion. He didn't dare enter through the main gate, afraid of scuffing the polished marble floors my husband was so obsessive about. Instead, he took the side path, a narrow walkway where Kevin parked the car he treated as his most prized possession. Perhaps because the sacks were so heavy and the path so tight, my father's old, weather-beaten bicycle wobbled. The rusty handlebar scraped lightly against the side of the Mercedes. The screech was faint, but to Kevin, it was like a thunderclap. I was just pulling up to the main gate, returning from the grocery store, my car's engine still running, when I heard Kevin's beast-like roar. I rushed inside, and the scene before me made my blood run cold, then boil with rage. My father, a man who had spent his entire life with his back bent to the earth, stood there, his hands trembling, mumbling incoherently. I'm so sorry, son. It was an accident. It was too heavy. Let me wipe it for you, let me clean it. Wipe it? With what? That filthy, sweat-stained shirt of yours? Kevin swatted my father's hand away, causing the old man to stumble. He knelt to inspect the faint scratch on the car's side, his eyes veined with fury. My God! I just got this car 2 weeks ago. This is original German paint. Do you know how much it costs to repaint a scratch like this? $2,000. 2,000, you old country hick. Where are you going to get $2,000 to pay me? Son, please, calm down. It wasn't on purpose. I'll go home and sell some of my livestock. I'll send you the money, my father pleaded, tears welling in his eyes. His calloused, sun-darkened hand reached out to pacify his son-in-law, but Kevin recoiled as if touched by a leper. Don't you dare touch me with those filthy hands. This suit I'm wearing is worth more than your entire farm. Kevin screamed, his cruelty laid bare in every word. Sell your livestock? You could sell your whole damn farm and it wouldn't be enough to cover the cost of buffing this out. You hicks are all the same, bringing bad luck and filth wherever you go. I've told Emily 1,000 times not to let you come here anymore. You're an embarrassment in front of the neighbors, but she never listens. I stood frozen behind the iron gate, my knuckles white from clenching the grocery bags. Kevin's words were like daggers, piercing my heart. So this was the truth. The polite, respectful act he always put on for me was nothing but a facade. Behind my back, he saw my father, the man who gave me life, as nothing more than a filthy, unlucky peasant. But the worst was yet to come. Kevin's rage was not yet satisfied. He glared at my father's bowed head, then down at a faint smudge on the tire where the bicycle wheel had touched it. A sick, twisted idea flickered in his mind. All right, you want to apologize, right? You want to make it right? Kevin sneered, a chillingly contemptuous smile on his face. I know you don't have the money. So here's what you're going to do. Get on your knees. Right here. He pointed to the scorching hot pavement. My father looked up, his clouded eyes filled with confusion. What did you say, son? I said, get on your knees. Kevin's voice was a low growl, his eyes bulging. You dirtied my car. You scratched my car. Now you will kneel and use that shirt on your back to wipe my tire and this scratch clean for me. You will polish it until it shines, and then I'll let you go. Otherwise, you're not leaving this property. I'll call the police and have you arrested for vandalism. Kevin. Son. I'm your father-in-law. My father trembled, his voice choked with emotion as tears streamed down his wrinkled cheeks. He looked at his son-in-law not with anger, but with a plea, a look of ultimate humiliation. A man in his 70s, forced to kneel before someone young enough to be his son, to polish a car. Could there be a greater pain? Father-in-law? A stupid, destructive father-in-law is no better than a stranger. Now, hurry up, or do you want me to have someone drag you out of here? Kevin was unmoved, even stomping his foot to intimidate him. My father, a man who had never bowed to any hardship in his life, now, for the love of his daughter and the fear of disrupting my family's peace, began to bend his knees. The moment my father's knees were about to touch the hot pavement was the moment my heart shattered into a million pieces and turned to ash. Years of patience vanished, replaced by a furious, all-consuming inferno of hatred. I could not stay silent any longer. I could not let this despicable man trample on my creator for another second. Stop! Right! Now! I shrieked, a gut-wrenching scream that echoed through the neighborhood. I dropped the bags and charged forward like a hurricane. Kevin spun around, startled. Seeing my face flushed with rage and my eyes blazing, he looked momentarily flustered before quickly regaining his arrogant demeanor. Ah, Emily, you're back just in time. Come see what your old man did to my car. It's brand new, and he's ruined it. You need to teach your father a lesson. I didn't even glance at Kevin. I rushed to my father's side and helped him up. His thin hands were ice-cold despite the sweltering heat. He looked at me and stammered, Emily, you're home. I'm sorry. I damaged your husband's car. It's not your fault, Dad, I choked out, using my handkerchief to wipe the sweat and tears from his face. Then I turned, my eyes locking onto Kevin's. My gaze must have been colder and sharper than any blade, because he instinctively took a step back. What did you just try to make my father do? I hissed, my voice dangerously low. I just asked him to wipe the car. Look, it's all scratched up. Aren't you upset? This is a $150,000 car. Kevin stammered, still trying to justify himself, pointing at the minuscule scratch. $150,000? I let out a bitter laugh, a laugh dripping with utter contempt. I stalked toward him, step by step, backing him against the car door. Kevin Johnson, you listened to me very carefully. Do you remember who signed the check for this car? Do you remember whose name is on the title and registration? Or have you been driving this car for so long, soaking in all the fake prestige, that you've started to delude yourself into thinking it's actually yours? Kevin froze, his face draining of color. He glanced around nervously to see if any neighbors were listening, then lowered his voice. What are you talking about? Let's go inside and discuss this. Don't air our dirty laundry in public. No. Today, I'm going to air out your rotten, filthy soul for the whole world to see, I yelled, all pretense of civility gone. You wanted to make my father kneel and clean this car, because it's expensive, because it's your car. Fine. Then let me tell you a little secret. I pulled the spare key fob from my purse and pressed the unlock button. The car beeped. I opened the driver's side door, retrieved the vehicle's registration and title from the glove compartment where I always kept them, and threw the documents squarely in his face. Read it. Whose name is on the title? It's Emily Davis. That's me. This car was bought with my money, from my own savings, before we were married. I only let you drive it so you could show off, so you could impress clients. You never contributed a single damn cent to its purchase. Kevin stood rooted to the spot, the registration papers fluttering to the ground. My father stared at me in astonishment. I turned to him, took his hand firmly in mine, and made a declaration so loud and clear that Kevin and the nosy neighbors peeking over their fences were left speechless. Dad, you don't have to clean anything or pay for anything. Right now, I am officially transferring ownership of this $150,000 car to you. It's yours. If you want to take a sledgehammer and smash it to pieces, or light a match and burn it to the ground right here to vent your anger, I will support you completely. Let's see who dares to make you kneel again. My words were like a bucket of boiling water thrown in Kevin's face. His complexion went from red to a deathly white. He knew I wasn't bluffing, and he knew his nightmare had only just begun. Would Kevin know how to react to this shock? Would his greedy family resort to other tricks to get the car back? And what would I do next to protect my father? The vehicle registration lay starkly on the sun-baked pavement, the name Emily Davis printed in bold black ink, mocking Kevin's shattered pride. He stood frozen, his eyes wide, his mouth agape, unable to utter a word. The aggressive, domineering man from moments ago had vanished, leaving only a raw, naked humiliation. Looking at him then, memories of our past rushed back, bitter and sharp. Everyone who looked at our marriage said I'd hit the jackpot, a small-town girl who got lucky and married a city-dwelling director with a fancy car. I never corrected them, just smiled and let it go. I did it because I loved Kevin and because I wanted to protect his male ego. But it was that very silence, that enabling, which had cultivated the monster he had become. The truth was, before I met Kevin, I was already a quiet giant in the agricultural export business. Since my early 20s, I had hustled my way through the farms of the Central Valley, sourcing produce, negotiating deals, and eventually starting my own company. The money I made didn't come from sitting in a slick, air-conditioned office. It came from sweat and tears, from sleepless nights spent at loading docks. I was wealthy, very wealthy, but I lived simply. I disliked flaunting it. I still drove my old pickup truck and dressed plainly because I respected the value of hard work. Kevin, at the time, was just a junior salesman at a partner company. He was handsome and charming, a smooth talker, but he came from a modest background and was burdened by a fragile ego. When we were dating, he'd often complain about how partners looked down on him because he drove a beat-up sedan. "Babe, in this business, appearances are everything," he'd sigh. "I have the talent, but when I pull up to a meeting in that old clunker, they try to lowball me. If only I had a decent car, even just a basic one, they'd show me some respect." Seeing his frustration, my heart softened. We were already planning our wedding, and I thought, what's mine is his. Helping my husband was helping myself. So, a month before the wedding, I quietly withdrew $150,000 from my personal savings money I had painstakingly accumulated over 7 years of relentless work and bought this Mercedes S580. I remember the day we picked it up. Kevin was trembling with excitement, caressing the steering wheel like a holy relic. He asked me, "Where did you get so much money? Did you take out a loan?" I just smiled and said, "It's my savings, plus my parents sold a small plot of land to help out. It's for you, to help with your business. Just drive it and don't worry." I had made what I would later realize was the biggest mistake of my life. I gave Kevin full use of the car, letting him claim it as his own everywhere he went. I stepped into the background, playing the role of a supportive homemaker, managing my business remotely so he could shine. I wanted him to be confident, but I never imagined that confidence would mutate into such arrogance and ingratitude. Driving a $150,000 car, Kevin was hailed as a successful entrepreneur. Gradually, he forgot who had actually paid for it. He started to believe the car was a symbol of his own status, something that separated him from the working-class world he came from. And most painfully, he used that fake status to look down on my family. Kevin hated visiting my hometown. He complained the dirt roads stained his expensive tires. He whined that my parents' house smelled of hay and manure. Whenever my parents sent us produce from the farm, he would wrinkle his nose as if smelling something foul. Once, my mom sent up a dozen fresh duck eggs and a bag of mixed greens from her garden. When Kevin came home and saw them in the kitchen, he kicked the bag straight into the trash. "Why are you bringing this garbage into our house?" The eggs stink and the vegetables are full of dirt and germs. This is a luxury home, Emily, not a dumpster for your parents to unload their leftovers. That time, we had a huge fight. He apologized, blaming it on a stressful day at work, and I, again, softened and let it go. But I didn't realize that his contempt had already seeped into his very bones. He saw my parents as poor, backward farmers leeching off their wealthy son-in-law. He had no idea that those backward farmers had given their daughter hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy the very ego he wore like a designer suit. And today, that contempt had reached its peak. He hadn't just insulted my father. He had trampled on his dignity. Looking at my father standing there in his faded brown work clothes and worn-out boots next to the gleaming luxury car, the contrast was heartbreaking. That car was once a symbol of my love and sacrifice for my husband. Now, it had become his weapon to humiliate my father. It had become a monster that had devoured Kevin's humanity. Kevin picked up the registration, his hand shaking. He looked at me, trying to salvage one last shred of authority. Emily, what are you saying? Even if you bought it, we're married now. It's marital property. Your money is my money. Don't you dare try to threaten me with some paperwork. I'm the main breadwinner in this house. The main breadwinner? I burst out laughing, a dry, hollow sound in the midday heat. Kevin, you've been playing the role of director. For so long you've forgotten how to be real. Your salary is $6,000 a month. After your fancy dinners, gas, designer clothes, and bar tabs, there's barely anything left. You give me a few $100 for utilities, and it's never enough. This house? I bought it before we were married. This car? I bought it before we were married. What exactly have you contributed to this household, besides your oversized ego and your pathetic need for validation? Exposed so brutally, Kevin's embarrassment turned to rage. He lost his composure, and his thuggish nature emerged. He lunged toward my father and grabbed him by the collar. Damn it, this is all your fault. It's because of you, you senile old man, that my wife and I are fighting. Get out. Get out of my sight right now. Don't think you can act high and mighty just because your daughter has a little money. In this house, I'm the boss. He shoved my father hard, sending him stumbling backward into a thorny rose bush. A cry of pain escaped my father's lips as the sharp thorns tore into his thin skin. Dad! I screamed, my heart feeling as if it were being squeezed in a vice. My father lay there, clutching his bleeding arm, but still stammering, Kevin, son. I'm leaving now. Please, don't be angry with your wife. Even at this moment, he was still worried about me, still afraid I would fall out of favor with my husband. That selfless, painful deference ignited the fury within me to its absolute peak. It incinerated any last shred of affection I had for Kevin. I was no longer the patient wife. In that moment, I was only a daughter protecting her father from a predator. I moved like lightning, yanking Kevin's hand off my father. As he turned to raise a hand at me, I channeled all my strength, all the pain and resentment of the past 4 years, into my right arm. Crack! A sharp, resounding slap echoed through the quiet street. The blow was so forceful it snapped Kevin's head to the side, leaving a bright red imprint of my 5 fingers on his meticulously cared-for face. The world seemed to stop. The chirping of cicadas fell silent. Even the neighbors peeking from their windows held their breath. Kevin clutched his face, staring at me in disbelief. His wife, who was always so meek and obedient, had just slapped him. You dare hit me? He growled, his voice trembling with rage. Hitting you is getting off easy, I shot back, my eyes blazing, unflinching. This slap is on behalf of your own parents. To teach you how to be a decent human being. You may have a college education and wear $1,000 suits, but your character is cheaper than a rag used to wipe a car. I turned to help my father up, brushing the dirt from his clothes and carefully examining the scratches on his arm. Blood was still seeping from the thorn pricks, and my stomach twisted in knots. I helped him to a stone bench and then turned back to face Kevin, pointing a finger at the gleaming Mercedes. You treasure this car, don't you? You treat it like a god, making my father kneel before it? Kevin was still holding his cheek. Fuming. So what? It's mine to care about. You can afford it, so you don't feel the sting, but I have to work my ass off. Shut your mouth. I roared, cutting off his pathetic excuse. Listen to me closely. The title is in my name. The money was mine. Legally, I have the absolute right to do whatever I want with it. And right now, at this very moment, I declare that I am gifting this car to my father. Kevin was stunned. Are you insane? What the hell are you talking about? I'm not insane. I'm perfectly lucid. I pulled out my phone and dialed my company's lawyer, David Evans. David, I need you to bring over the paperwork for a property transfer to my house, immediately. Yes, right now. I want to transfer the title of a Mercedes S580 to Mr. Robert Davis, my father. I hung up and shot a defiant look at Kevin. Did you hear that? The lawyer will be here in 15 minutes. The paperwork will be finalized today. From the moment I sign that document, this car will belong to Robert Davis. I turned back to my father, clasping his trembling hand and speaking loud enough for Kevin to hear every single word. Dad, this car is now yours. You have full authority over it. If you want, you can sell it for retirement money. If you don't like it, if the sight of it disgusts you because it caused you to fall, then please, take a sledgehammer and smash it to pieces for me. Or you can light it on fire and watch it burn. It's my gift to you, for your entertainment. Let's see who dares to stop you from destroying your own property. My father was aghast. Emily, what are you doing? It's a car worth a fortune. It's such a waste. I won't take it. You have to, I insisted, tears streaming down my face, though my voice remained firm. I want that man to know that in my eyes, your dignity, a single drop of your blood, is worth 1,000 times more than this pile of scrap metal. If he considers this car his life, then I will let you trample all over his life. It was only then that true panic set in for Kevin. He wasn't afraid of being hit, but he was terrified of losing the car. That car was his livelihood. Without it, how would he impress clients? How would he hobnob with his so-called elite friends? Without it, he would revert to being the junior salesman in a beat-up sedan. Emily, calm down, Kevin pleaded, his tone shifting dramatically from arrogance to desperation. Let's talk about this privately. If you do this, you're killing me. I need that car for client meetings. I have a major meeting tomorrow. That's your problem, I said coldly, pushing his hand away. You can take an Uber, a taxi, or you can walk. That's your choice. As for this car, if my father wants to drive it, he will. If he wants to destroy it, he will. You no longer have any right to even touch it. Where are the keys? Give them to me. No, I won't, Kevin backed away, clutching his pocket. You can't do this. If my mother finds out, she won't let you get away with it. Oh, now you're bringing your mother into this? I scoffed. Go ahead, call her. Call your entire clan. Let's see if any of them will have the nerve to defend you when they find out you forced your father-in-law to kneel and clean your car. Kevin gritted his teeth, his eyes wild. He knew I meant what I said. He looked at the car, then at my father, and a despicable calculation formed in his mind. He couldn't lose this car. Suddenly, he lunged for the driver's side door, intending to jump in, start the engine, and flee. He planned to hide the car before the lawyer arrived. Where do you think you're going? I had anticipated this move and quickly blocked the door. Get out of my way, you crazy bitch. He yelled, raising his hand to shove me aside. Just then, another black sedan screeched to a halt at the gate. The door opened, and David Evans, my lawyer, stepped out, flanked by two large, imposing security guards. Is there a problem, Miss Davis? David asked, taking in the chaotic scene. David, you're right on time, I said, composing myself. I pointed at Kevin. This man is attempting to steal my personal property. Please help me detain him while we complete the transfer paperwork. The two guards immediately stepped forward, crossing their arms and blocking Kevin's path. Kevin looked at them, then at me, his face ashen. He knew he was completely outmaneuvered. But the drama was far from over. Just as the tension reached a breaking point, the obnoxious honk of a moped echoed down the street. A middle-aged woman in flashy makeup hopped off a rideshare scooter, storming in like a tornado. It was Brenda, my mother-in-law, and with her was Tiffany, my sharp-tongued sister-in-law. "Oh my God, you shameless hussy. You dare to call gangsters to attack your husband and steal his car?" Brenda shrieked, her voice grating on the ears. "Kevin! Where are you? Why are you just standing there and letting her bully you? That car is yours. Who dares to transfer it to that old hick from the country?" The arrival of Brenda and Tiffany was like pouring a gallon of gasoline on an already raging fire. The air, already suffocating from the midday heat, became unbearably tense. Brenda, my mother-in-law, a woman notorious in the neighborhood for her loud mouth and garish taste, marched forward. She shoved aside a security guard who tried to stop her and planted herself in the middle of the driveway, hands on her hips. Her heavily lined eyes darted from me to my father, finally settling on Kevin, who was still clutching his cheek. "Oh, my poor boy. Who did this to you? Your face is all swollen. How are you supposed to conduct business looking like this?" Brenda wailed, fussing over Kevin's face before whipping her head around to face me, a gold-ringed finger pointed accusingly. "Emily, have you lost your mind? You dare to strike your husband and call a gang of thugs to intimidate him? This house is in chaos." I looked at her, a wave of exhaustion washing over me. "Please look carefully, Brenda," I said calmly. "This is a lawyer and his security detail, not gangsters. And I had a very good reason for hitting your son. Why don't you ask your precious boy what he did to my father?" Seeing his mother and sister arrive, Kevin felt emboldened. He dropped his hand from his face and pointed at my father, who was still huddled on the bench. "Mom, look. This old man from the country completely ruined my $150,000 car. When I asked him to pay for it, your daughter-in-law went ballistic. Now she wants to give him the car and told him to burn it if he wants." Tiffany, my dramatic sister-in-law, immediately ran over to the car, stroking the tiny scratch as if it were a mortal wound. She shrieked, "Oh my God, it's so deep. The car is ruined. Kevin, this will cost thousands to fix at the dealership, and it won't even be original paint anymore. The resale value has just tanked. It was a $150,000 car, now you'd be lucky to get $100,000 for it." She then turned to my father, her face a mask of contempt, her lip curled. "Ugh, typical country bumpkin. Can't even walk straight. Do you have any idea that this car is worth more than your entire hick town combined? You could sell your house, your farm, and your own decrepit body, and you still wouldn't be able to afford to fix this paint job." "Tiffany, you shut your mouth right now," I roared, the blood rushing to my head. "That is my father. You have no right to speak to him like that." "I'll say whatever I want," Tiffany shot back, puffed up with her mother's support. "You're my sister-in-law, but you act like a stranger. Your husband works his butt off to buy a car, your father comes and destroys it, and instead of apologizing, you defend him. Like father, like daughter, a pair of destructive freeloaders." Brenda chimed in, her voice booming for the whole neighborhood to hear. "Tiffany's right. You think just because you paid for part of this house, you run the show? Kevin is the man, the breadwinner. He's out there making million-dollar deals. That car is his image. Your father damages it, and Kevin has every right to demand compensation. Making him kneel to clean, it was letting him off easy. If it were me, I'd have thrown him out on the street to beg." I was stunned. I couldn't believe my ears. So, Kevin forcing my father to kneel wasn't just a momentary lapse in judgment, it stemmed from the rotten, classist ideology of this entire family. In their eyes, my father wasn't a person, not an in-law, but a lower life form, a freeloader unworthy of respect. My father sat there, listening to every venomous word, tears streaming down his weathered face. He shrank into himself, his calloused hands twisting together, his thin shoulders shaking. He didn't dare look up, as if he truly believed he was a criminal. "You be quiet." I stepped in front of my father, glaring at the three of them. "All you people can talk about is money and status, but your characters aren't worth a dime. You call my father poor? Yes, he's poor in money, but he is 1,000 times richer in dignity than parasites like you. Who are you calling a parasite? Kevin lunged at me, but one of David's guards stepped in, blocking him with a solid arm. I laughed coldly and continued my tirade. I'm talking about all of you. Brenda, you claim your son is a breadwinner making millions? Do you know whose money you spend every month on spa days, new clothes, and lavish church donations? It's my money. Tiffany, you claim to be a small business owner, but where did your startup capital come from? It came from your brother. Who secretly took it from me? You live off me, you bleed me dry, you use my money to build your fancy facade, and then you turn around and bite the hand that feeds you, insulting my father for being poor. You're lying. My son is a director. Brenda stammered, her face turning purple. Director of what? I screamed, tearing down their paper-thin charade. A figurehead director with a pathetic salary who has to ask his wife for gas money. I bought this car. I bought this house. Even the damn underwear your precious son is wearing right now was bought with my blood, sweat, and tears. What right do any of you have to stand here and lecture my father? The raw, unvarnished truth, laid bare for all to see, silenced the three of them. Tiffany's jaw dropped. Brenda was speechless. And Kevin, utterly humiliated, could only stare at the ground. But the shamelessness of the greedy knows no bounds. After a moment of shock, Brenda suddenly burst into a theatrical wail, collapsing onto the ground. Oh, neighbors, come and see. My daughter-in-law is cursing her mother-in-law. She's slandering her husband. She thinks her money gives her the right to walk all over us. She's disrespectful. She's a monster. I'm going to make Kevin divorce her, right now. Divorce? You think I'm desperate to keep a spineless leech like him? I looked down at her with pity. We will get a divorce. But before that, I'm taking back everything that belongs to me. Starting with this car. I turned to my lawyer. David. The paperwork. I'm signing it now. Hearing the word sign, Kevin snapped out of his stupor. He knew I wasn't bluffing. Losing the car meant losing everything. He rushed over and grabbed my arm. Emily, don't be rash. Mom's old, she's just talking nonsense. Don't do this. The transfer process is complicated. Let go of me, I said, shaking him off. You have no say in this anymore. At that moment, Tiffany lunged forward, trying to snatch the documents from the lawyer's hands. You can't sign. That's my brother's car. You're a thief. The other security guard simply extended an arm, causing her to trip and fall onto the lawn. She shrieked, assault. He's hitting me. Somebody call the police. My father, who had been sitting silently on the bench this whole time, clutched the canvas sack containing his simple gifts. He looked like an ancient, weathered statue, lost in a glamorous world full of predators. He had heard everything. He understood that his very presence was the reason his daughter was in this fight. The reason her family was in turmoil. He understood that in the eyes of these polished city folk, his poverty was a crime. Seeing Tiffany fall and Brenda wail, my father shakily stood up. From his breast pocket, he pulled out a small wad of cash, carefully wrapped in a plastic bag and old newspaper. It was the money he'd made from his last harvest, plus the sale of a calf. He had intended to give it to me for my daughter's savings. He walked toward Kevin, his trembling hands holding out the money. Kevin. Son, take this. His voice was hoarse and choked with emotion. There's about $200 here. It's all I have. Please, take it to fix the car. I'll owe you the rest. I'll go home and sell my last few pigs, sell a piece of my land. I'll send it to you. Please, please don't be angry with your wife anymore. Kevin looked at the crumpled, worn bills. They smelled faintly of earth and sweat. He was not moved. Instead, he looked disgusted. He took a step back, waving his hand in front of his nose. Get that stinking money away from me. $200? That might buy me a lug nut. Are you trying to give me charity like I'm some beggar? Brenda chimed in. Wow, $200, so generous. That's what I spend on one trip to the grocery store. You should keep it to buy medicine for yourself, before you drop dead here and become a burden to my son. My father stood frozen, his hand still extended, holding the money. He looked at his son-in-law, at his daughter-in-law's mother, and then he looked at me. His eyes were filled with pain and despair, but also with an overwhelming love for his daughter. He turned to me and forced a weak, crooked smile. Emily, it's okay. I'm going home now. Don't fight with your husband and his mother because of me. A woman's duty is to her husband's family. It's better to keep the peace. I'm old, I can take it. Don't make a scene. People will laugh. With that, he bent down to hoist the heavy sack onto his shoulder. His frail, stooped figure began to shuffle toward the gate. He was going to walk to the bus station, to flee this place of cold, heartless luxury and restore a false sense of peace for his daughter. Seeing my father's retreating back, my heart felt like it was being torn to shreds. I remembered him carrying me on his back through muddy paths to school. I remembered him fanning me all night during power outages. He had sacrificed his whole life for me. And now that I had money, was I going to let him be shamed like this? No. I could not be that ungrateful daughter. If I let my father walk out that gate today, burdened with shame and injustice, I would live with regret for the rest of my life. I would be no better than those heartless creatures. Dad! Don't go! I screamed, running and wrapping my arms around him from behind. My tears soaked the back of his faded brown shirt. You're not going anywhere. This is my house, which means it's your house too. My father turned and stroked my hair. Let me go, honey. I'm going back to the farm. It's more comfortable there. No, I said firmly, taking the sack from his shoulder and handing it to one of the guards. I took my father's hand and turned to face Kevin and his family, who stood there dumbfounded. My tears had stopped. All weakness had vanished, replaced by the cold, decisive resolve of a woman in control of her own destiny. My father is not going anywhere today. He will stay here, in this house. He will sleep in the most comfortable bed and eat the finest food. He is the owner of that car, and he is the father of the owner of this house. I glared at Kevin, my voice dropping to a hiss. As for you and your family, get out of my yard. Immediately. You're kicking your husband and mother-in-law out of the house? Brenda gasped, incredulous. Yes. This house is in my name. It is my separate property, purchased before our marriage. You have no legal right to be here. I'm asking you to leave, so I can close the gate. I don't want my father to have to look at your hypocritical faces any longer. Emily, you've gone too far. Kevin yelled, starting to advance. David, I signaled. The two imposing guards immediately stepped forward, forming a human wall between me and Kevin's family. Please escort these people off the property. If they refuse, we will be forced to take stronger measures. You just wait. I'll sue you. I'll ruin your reputation. Brenda shrieked as she and Tiffany were pushed toward the gate, still screaming insults. Kevin gave me one last look of pure hatred and helplessness before he too was forced out. Clang! The heavy iron gate slammed shut in their faces, cutting off the noise and vitriol. The yard was suddenly quiet. I turned to my father, who was still trembling. Let's go inside, Dad. It's too hot out here. I helped him up the steps, leaving the greedy family to bang on the gate in vain. I led him into the cool, air-conditioned living room and poured him a glass of orange juice. But I knew the storm wasn't over. Outside that gate, the wounded animals were plotting a more despicable revenge. And more importantly, I had a promise to keep, to give my father peace of mind, and to teach Kevin a lesson he would never forget. David, let's get to work, I said to my lawyer, my eyes fixed on the Mercedes parked in the driveway. Draft the gift deed. Right now. The living room was cool and quiet, a stark contrast to the blazing sun outside, where Kevin and his family stood stranded behind the locked gate. I helped my father onto the plush leather sofa, and then nodded at David Evans. He understood immediately, opening his briefcase and setting up a laptop and a portable printer. The rhythmic clacking of the keyboard was the only sound in the room, each keystroke carrying the weight of a final judgment. "Miss Davis, the gift deed is ready," David said after a few minutes. "The property is one Mercedes-Benz S580, VIN number. The donor is Emily Davis, and the recipient is Robert Davis. Please review the terms and sign." I took the freshly printed paper, the ink still warm. I scanned the legal text. Everything was in order. Without a moment's hesitation, I took the pen and signed my name with a firm, decisive stroke. Then, I pushed the document and the pen toward my father. "Dad, sign here. Once you sign, this car is yours, forever." My father picked up the pen, his calloused hand shaking. He looked at the paper, then out the window, at the gleaming black car. His entire life, his most valuable assets had been a tractor and a few acres of land. Now, he was suddenly the owner of a piece of metal worth over $150,000. Fear and anxiety filled his clouded eyes. "Emily, maybe we shouldn't. I don't even know how to drive. And what if I damage such an expensive car?" He stammered, trying to push the paper back. I held his hand firmly, looking deep into his eyes. "Dad, you don't need to drive it. You don't need to be afraid of damaging it. I'm giving it to you not so you can use it, but so you have the power to decide its fate. So that from this day forward, no one, not even me, can ever look down on you or insult you because of this car. Please sign. For your honor, and for the respect I am demanding back for both of us." My words moved him to tears. He understood this wasn't about money, it was about washing away the humiliation he had just endured. He took a deep breath and shakily signed his name, Robert Davis. The script was clumsy, the letters uneven, but they held the weight of a man's dignity being restored. David quickly notarized the document, finalizing the transfer on the spot. "Congratulations, Mr. Davis," he said, handing the official paperwork to my father. Meanwhile, outside the gate, Kevin was living a nightmare. He peered through the iron bars, watching in horror as my father and I signed the paper and the lawyer stamped it with a red seal. He lost his mind, frantically ringing the doorbell and pounding on the gate. "Emily! Emily, open the door! Don't sign it! Please, don't sign!" His desperate screams echoed into the house. I calmly picked up the remote and pressed the button. The gate slid open. Kevin charged in, sweating and disheveled, but he didn't dare rush me, as the two guards stood impassively in his way. "You signed it? You really signed it?" he asked, his voice cracking as he stared at the papers in my father's hand. "Yes, it's signed," I said, holding up the document for him to see. "Black and white, official seal. As of this moment, this Mercedes has nothing to do with me or you. It is the legal property of Mr. Robert Davis." Kevin staggered, grabbing a pillar for support. He looked at the car with the agonized expression of a man watching his own execution. To him, that car wasn't just a vehicle. It was his meal ticket, his reputation, the armor that concealed his empty, insecure self. He had a crucial meeting tomorrow with an international client. He had bragged about picking them up in his luxury sedan, building an image of a wealthy, successful entrepreneur. If he showed up in an Uber, his carefully constructed facade would crumble, the deal would be off, and his credibility would be shot. Worse, he had used the car as collateral for personal loans from friends, borrowing money to fund his lavish lifestyle. Now that the car was gone, his creditors would see him for what he really was. "Emily, you've ruined me," he wailed, tears and snot running down his face. "Do you know I have a meeting with Mr. Harrison tomorrow? It's a $2 million contract. Without the car, he'll think I'm a nobody and cancel. You're destroying your husband's career." "Your career?" I scoffed. "A career built on lies, a fragile ego, and your wife's money was bound to collapse sooner or later. You're afraid a client will look down on you? How do you think my father felt when you looked down on him?" "But he's a farmer. What does he need dignity for?" "I'm a director. I need an image," Kevin blurted out, revealing his deep-seated, rotten beliefs. That was the last straw. Even on the brink of ruin, he couldn't shed his despicable arrogance. "Get out," I said, pointing to the gate. "I don't want to hear another word from your filthy mouth." Realizing his mistake, Kevin's expression shifted. He looked at my father holding the car title, then at my cold, unforgiving face. He knew he couldn't win with aggression. He needed that car, at least for one more day. In a breathtakingly fast transformation, his face crumpled from rage into a mask of pathetic, remorseful sorrow. He was about to perform the greatest acting role of his life, the repentant son-in-law. Kevin took a deep breath and then, dramatically, dropped to his knees. His kneecaps hit the hard floor with a loud thud. He shuffled on his knees toward my father, grabbing onto his legs. "Dad, I was wrong. I'm so sorry." He began to sob, his tears flowing like a river. He buried his head in my father's lap, his shoulders shaking. "I'm a mess. The pressure from work. It made me lose my mind. I'm a terrible son-in-law. I deserve to be punished. Hit me, Dad, yell at me, but please, don't be angry with me." My father, a gentle soul, was taken aback. Seeing the man who had just tried to humiliate him now kneeling and crying at his feet, his heart softened. "Get up, son. Men don't kneel like this." He tried to help Kevin up, but Kevin refused. "No, I'll kneel here until you forgive me," he cried, looking up with red-rimmed eyes. "Dad, I know you love me and Emily. It's fine for you to have the car, but please, could you just lend it to me for a while? So I can work and provide for our family? I promise, from now on, I'll treat you like my own father." While pleading, he snuck a glance at me, testing the waters. He was playing on my father's compassion, hoping he would hand over the keys. Sure enough, my father turned to me, his eyes hesitant. "Emily, maybe." He seems to have learned his lesson. I watched Kevin's pathetic performance with disgust. The old me might have fallen for it. But not anymore. "Dad, don't believe a word he says," I said coldly. "Emily, don't be so heartless. I'm on my knees begging for forgiveness." "What more do you want?" Kevin cried out, feigning injustice. "You really think you're sorry?" I smirked, walking over to the entertainment center and picking up a remote. "Kevin Johnson, you're a fantastic actor. But unfortunately for you, I have security cameras installed all over this property, including by the gate. And they record audio very clearly." Kevin's face went pale. What are you doing?" "Just showing you your own true colors from 5 minutes ago." I pressed a button. The 6.5-inch television screen flickered to life, showing the feed from the front gate camera, cued to the exact moment after I had kicked his family out. On the screen, Brenda and Tiffany were still screaming insults. Then Kevin's voice, sharp and annoyed, cut through. "Mom, stop shouting. You're just making her angrier. If she really transfers the car, we lose everything. So, what's your plan? Just let that witch steal your car?" Brenda's voice screeched. Kevin on the screen sighed, his eyes glinting with cunning. "There's only one way. I'll go back in, get on my knees, and cry to her old man. That country hick is a sentimental fool. He'll soften up the moment he sees me cry. You two go home first. I'll put on a show. As soon as I trick him into giving me the keys and the title back, I'll kick both of them out and send them back to the farm where they belong. Then I'll show Emily who's boss." "You better act well," Brenda's voice said. "Don't you dare lose that $150,000 car. Once you get it back, I'm coming over to tear that little tramp to shreds." The video ended. A dead silence fell over the room. Kevin remained kneeling on the floor, frozen as if turned to stone. He never imagined his vile, calculated plan would be recorded and played back in front of the very person he was trying to deceive. My father stared at the screen, then slowly looked down at the man kneeling at his feet. The hesitation and pity in his eyes were gone, replaced by profound disappointment and pain. He pulled his legs away as if to avoid being contaminated. You despicable animal," my father whispered, his voice trembling with hurt. He clutched the car documents to his chest, guarding his last shred of dignity. "You tried to trick me, to get the car back just to throw me out? I may be old, but I'm not blind or deaf. I looked at Kevin, a smile colder than ice on my lips. So, how about it, dutiful son-in-law? Anything else to say? The sentimental fool has a daughter who isn't a fool at all. Kevin knew it was over. His mask had been ripped off in the most humiliating way possible. He slowly got to his feet, the pleading act gone, replaced by the true face of a cornered, hateful man. Fine. You're clever, Emily. Very clever, he spat, pointing a finger at me. You set me up. You think you've won? You can have your stupid car and your old man. I don't need them. But you remember this, we're getting a divorce, and I'm taking half of everything you own. We'll see who's crying then. A divorce? That's a certainty, I replied calmly. But you want to split the assets? You're gravely mistaken, Kevin. Did you really think I wasn't prepared for this day? It's not just the car you're going to lose. You're going to lose a lot more. I turned to one of the security guards. Please escort this man off my property. If he resists, call the police and have him arrested for trespassing and creating a disturbance. Kevin stormed out, but not before giving the Mercedes one last lingering look of greed and regret. He had no idea that losing the car was just the beginning of the hell I had in store for him. The financial punishment was about to begin. Inside the house, an unusual quiet settled in. My father was still in shock, sitting on the sofa and clutching the car documents. I helped him to his room to rest, then returned to my home office. I sat down and opened my laptop, the screen's glow illuminating my cold, emotionless face. If Kevin thought being thrown out and losing the car was the ultimate punishment, he was wrong. That was just the appetizer. For a man obsessed with image and accustomed to living off his wife, the most terrifying punishment wasn't physical, but financial. I logged into my online banking portal. A list of supplementary credit cards appeared on the screen. Card has shown, Visa Infinite, $50,000 limit. Supplementary cardholder, Kevin Johnson. This was the card he used for gas, client dinners, designer clothes, and treating his friends. He loved flashing this black card, basking in the admiration of others, forgetting that I was the one who paid the bill every month. Card #2, MasterCard World, $20,000 limit. Supplementary cardholder, Brenda Johnson, my mother-in-law. This was her ticket to spa days, shopping sprees, and making large donations at her social clubs. Card #3, store credit card, $5,000 limit. Supplementary cardholder, Tiffany Johnson, my sister-in-law. She used it for cosmetics, trendy restaurants, and movie tickets. 3 people, 3 cards, 3 leeches attached to my bank account for the past 4 years. I had ignored it for the sake of peace. Today, I was cutting them all off. Click. I froze Kevin's card. Click. I froze Brenda's card. Click. I froze Tiffany's card. The screen confirmed the requests. Cards have been successfully deactivated. I smiled, a smile of relief. But I wasn't done. I canceled the automatic monthly transfer of $1,000 I sent to my mother-in-law for spending money. I also stopped the automatic bill payments for the utilities at the small house. She lived in a house in Kevin's name, but one that I had paid to renovate. Done. The river of free money they had been casually sipping from for years had just run dry. Let's see how they maintain their elite lifestyle now. Elsewhere, Kevin was sitting in a chic downtown LA bar. After being kicked out, he didn't go to his mother's. He needed strong liquor to wash away the humiliation. He ordered the most expensive scotch and beckoned a waitress over. "You look sad tonight, Mr. Johnson," she purred. "Where's your Mercedes?" Kevin took a long drag from his cigarette. "It's in the shop for maintenance. Took an Uber tonight, you know, for the environment. Now, pour." After drinking himself into a stupor, he signaled for the check. The bill was over $200. Kevin nonchalantly pulled out his familiar Visa Infinite, the picture of casual wealth. "Here you go." 5 minutes later, the waitress returned, looking awkward. "Sir, I'm sorry, but the card was declined." "What? Declined? Do you know who I am?" That card has a $50,000 limit. Kevin bellowed, the alcohol fueling his aggression. I tried it 3 times, sir. The system says the card has been locked by the bank. Do you have another card, or perhaps cash? Kevin froze. Locked? A sense of dread washed over him. He fumbled for his wallet and pulled out his own debit card, but he'd already spent his last paycheck on online sports betting. Let me make a call, he stammered, his hand shaking as he dialed my number. The number you have dialed is not in service. I had blocked him the moment he left. Panic set in. The adoring looks from the staff had turned to suspicion and scorn. A high roller whose card was declined, with not even a couple $100 in cash. I forgot to bring cash. Let me call a friend, he mumbled, sweat beading on his forehead. He called a few buddies he'd often loaned money to, but they all suddenly had excuses. In the end, Kevin had to leave his watch a gift from me as collateral and sign an IOU to leave the bar. He stumbled out onto the street, with no money for a taxi, and had to walk a mile to the nearest bus stop. The image of the dapper director was gone, replaced by that of a pathetic, defeated man. At the same time, at a high-end shopping mall, Brenda and Tiffany were facing their own rude awakening. They had just picked out a pile of designer clothes and cosmetics. Mom, this dress is perfect for you. It's only $300. Tiffany cooed. Get it, Brenda said smugly. My daughter-in-law is loaded. This is nothing. Just put it on her card, she proudly handed her MasterCard to the cashier. Beep. Transaction declined. Ma'am, I'm sorry, there's an issue with your card. What issue? Run it again. Your machine must be broken. Brenda snapped. The cashier tried again. The bank is reporting the card has been locked, ma'am. What? Locked? Tiffany grabbed the card. That's impossible. The line behind them grew restless. Hey, hurry it up. If you can't pay, get out of the way. Someone grumbled. The whispers and snickers made Brenda's face burn with shame. She rummaged through her purse but only found a few dollars. Defeated, they had to leave their pile of luxury goods behind, scurrying out of the store to the sound of muffled laughter. When the 3 of them finally reconvened at Brenda's house, they were a pathetic sight. A drunk and exhausted Kevin, a humiliated and fuming Brenda and Tiffany. Putting the pieces together, they realized the horrifying truth. I had cut them off. That wretched bitch. She locked the cards. She cut off my money. Brenda screamed, throwing her purse down. The power company just sent a final notice. They're cutting us off tomorrow if we don't pay. Where are we going to get the money? Kevin, do something. Tiffany wailed. Are we just going to let her walk all over us? I owe my friend money for cosmetics I promised to pay back today. What am I going to do? Kevin clutched his head, the hangover and the harsh reality pounding in his skull. He was completely broke. No car, no house, no money, and now, the full weight of his dependent family crashing down on him. That night, a grim family meeting took place at Brenda's house. No one had cooked, there was no money for groceries. The 3 of them sat around a chipped coffee table, their faces dark with malice. We can't let her get away with this, Brenda slammed her hand on the table. She humiliated us, threw us out, stole your car, and now she's trying to starve us to death. But what can we do, Mom? Kevin whined. All the property is in her name. Her lawyer is a shark. I'm out of options. You're pathetic, Tiffany sneered. If the law can't touch her, we'll use something else. In this day and age, what does everyone fear? Public opinion. She's a business owner, she's terrified of losing her reputation. We need to ruin her. Make it so she can never hold her head up again. What do you mean? Brenda's eyes lit up. Tiffany pulled out her phone and smiled slyly. Look, the internet is full of stories about abusive daughters-in-law and gold-digging wives. All it takes is one post, one tearful video, and the social media mob will tear her apart. We'll paint her as the villain, and we'll be the poor, helpless victims. Kevin hesitated. But the truth is, The truth is what we say it is. Brenda glared. Do you want your car back? Do you want her to give us money again? Then listen to your sister. The vile plan was set. The next morning, as I was getting ready to take my father for a full medical checkup, my phone exploded. Notifications from Facebook, texts from unknown numbers. You evil bitch. How could you be so cruel, stealing from your husband to give to your father? Boycott Emily Davis's company. The owner is a fraud. Stunned, I opened Facebook. A live-streamed video was going viral, shared across dozens of community groups. The title, 70-year-old mother-in-law in tears, exposes rich daughter-in-law for kicking family to the curb and stealing husband's $150K car. In the video, Brenda was a portrait of misery. She wore old, ragged clothes, her hair was a mess, and she sat on the curb in front of her rundown house. Next to her, Tiffany was sobbing, and Kevin sat with his head bowed, the image of a long-suffering husband. Oh, dear heavens, please, someone help my family. Brenda cried into the camera, her performance worthy of an Oscar. My son worked his whole life to buy a car for his business. But his wife, that Emily, tricked him into signing the papers over to her. Then yesterday, her father came to visit, and she fabricated a story that my son was mean to him. And she threw our entire family out onto the street in the middle of the day. She stole the $150,000 car and gave it to her own father. Is there any daughter-in-law in the world as wicked as her? Tiffany added her own lies. My sister-in-law is a monster. She has money, so she looks down on us. My brother is a kind man who loves his wife, so he just endures it. Now she's cut off all our living expenses. She wants us to starve so she can bring her own father to live in luxury. Kevin played his part perfectly. I just want her to reconsider. I don't care about the car or the house. But throwing my elderly mother out onto the street. It breaks my heart. The twisted narrative, combined with their convincing performances and the internet's tendency to side with the perceived underdog, caused a firestorm. Thousands of shares, tens of thousands of hateful comments directed at me. My company's Facebook page was flooded with one-star reviews. Business partners started calling, their voices hesitant. A few extremists even came to my house and threw eggs at the gate. My father saw the video. He was shaking so hard he dropped his glass of water. Emily, why are they telling such wicked lies? Just give them the car back. Your reputation, your business. How will you recover? I looked at my father, my heart aching, but my resolve hardened into steel. I took his hand. Don't worry, Dad. The truth will come out. They want to play dirty with social media? I'll show them what happens when you play with fire. They forgot one crucial thing: the truth isn't in their words. It's in my hands. I went to my desk and took out the memory card from the security camera system, the one thing Kevin had completely forgotten about in his panic. They wanted to be famous? I would make them famous, but in a way they would forever regret. The hateful comments online continued to pour in, each one a needle pricking my father's fragile sense of honor. He sat huddled in his room, unable to look at his phone, his old eyes welling with tears. He wasn't afraid for himself, but for me and my business. Seeing him like this, my compassion transformed into cold, steely determination. I didn't need to argue or write a lengthy defense. In the digital age, a picture or a video is worth 1,000 words. I inserted the memory card into my computer and edited nothing. I took the raw footage of Kevin's tirade, him pointing his finger in my father's face, ordering him to his knees, and the moment he recoiled in disgust from his own father-in-law. I kept the original audio, Kevin's shrill yelling, my father's trembling pleas, and the sharp, satisfying crack of my slap across Kevin's face. I uploaded the video to my personal profile and my company's page with a simple caption. The truth about the long-suffering husband and the $150,000 car. The moment I hit post, a Category 5 hurricane was unleashed. And this time, it was blowing directly at the Johnson family. Within 30 minutes, the video exploded. The same people who had been vilifying me were now backpedaling at lightning speed. Public outrage, once directed at me, now turned on them with the force of a volcanic eruption as they witnessed an elderly man being forced to kneel over a tiny scratch. Are you kidding me? He's a monster, not a man. Turns out he's a freeloader. Driving his wife's car and has the audacity to abuse her father. What a pathetic excuse for a man. My heart breaks for the old gentleman. I cried, watching him tremble. That slap was well deserved. I would have done worse. Boycott this whole family of liars. They play the victim after being so cruel? Disgusting. The internet mob didn't stop at comments. They quickly dug up Kevin's real identity, his workplace, and his favorite hangouts. The next morning, oblivious to the disaster he had created, Kevin put on his suit and tie. Though broke, he was determined to go to his office, hoping his online sob story had earned him some sympathy from his boss and colleagues, perhaps enough to get an advance on his salary. But the moment he stepped into the office building, he knew something was wrong. The security guard glared at him. The receptionist whispered to her colleague, smirking in his direction. In the elevator, a coworker he tried to greet immediately stepped out. What's wrong with everyone? Kevin muttered, a cold sweat breaking out on his brow. He had barely sat down at his desk when he was summoned to HR. The HR director tossed a folder onto the table. Mr. Johnson, sign here. This is your termination notice, effective immediately. Kevin was floored. Termination? Why? My sales numbers are fine. The director gave a humorless laugh and turned his laptop around. On the screen was my video, with millions of views and thousands of comments demanding the company be boycotted for employing an immoral monster. Look at this, Kevin. You have become a public disgrace and a liability to this company. Clients are calling to complain. Partners are canceling meetings. We cannot have someone with your lack of moral character representing us. Pack your things and leave. Now. Kevin stared at the screen, at the torrent of insults, and realized his pathetic revenge scheme had backfired spectacularly. Destroying the last lifeline he had, he packed his personal belongings into a small cardboard box and walked the gauntlet of his staring, whispering coworkers. There goes Mr. Mercedes. Turns out he was Mr. Moocher. Serves him right. Go cry to your mommy now. He stepped out of the skyscraper into the harsh LA sun, but his future felt pitch black. He had lost his wife, his car, his home, and now his job. He was officially homeless, unemployed, and a social pariah. His phone buzzed. It was a text from a loan shark, a notice from the bank about overdue payments, and a frantic message from his mother. Son, come home now. People are throwing things at the house. The internet mob found us. I'm so scared. Kevin let out a desperate, anguished cry in the middle of the crowded street, but no one paid any attention to one more failure in the city of broken dreams. But in his moment of absolute desperation, when he thought he had nothing left to lose, one final, dark secret was about to be exposed, a secret that would be the final nail in his coffin. Kevin trudged back to his mother's rundown house. The gate was splattered with rotten tomatoes and red paint. The stench was overwhelming. A small group of online vigilantes lingered nearby, shouting insults and live-streaming his walk of shame. He had to use the cardboard box to shield his head as he rushed inside and bolted the door. Inside, Brenda was huddled on the sofa, gasping for breath. Tiffany was hiding in her room. The power and water had been cut off. The house was dark and sweltering. You're back. Brenda sobbed. What do we do now? They want to kill us. I was fired, Mom, Kevin said, his voice a hoarse whisper. It's over, everything is gone. Fired? Brenda shrieked. Then how will we eat? Where will we get money to pay our debts? Tiffany owes $50,000 to a loan shark for her designer bags. They're threatening to come to the house. The small house was filled with a tangible sense of doom. Just then, Kevin's phone rang. He glanced at the screen. The caller ID read, Misty, my love. His face paled. He quickly snuck into the bathroom and locked the door. Outside, Tiffany, suspicious of his secretive behavior, crept to the door and pressed her ear against it. Inside, Kevin whispered frantically. Babe? I'm in a bit of trouble. No, I'm not avoiding you. Money? I'm broke right now. A young woman's whiny voice could be heard from the phone. Don't give me that. You promised to buy me a condo. You just gave me $20,000 for the down payment last month. And now you're telling me you're broke? Are you trying to ditch me? I'm pregnant with your baby, Kevin. Shh, keep your voice down. Kevin hissed. I know. That $20,000, I had to sneak it out of my wife's savings account. I gave it to you to hold on to as our secret nest egg for when we started our life together. But she just kicked me out. Look, can you just give me a little of it back for now? I'll pay you back double once I'm on my feet. What? You want the money back? In your dreams, loser. Money in my purse is my money. You got dumped by your rich wife, so get lost. Don't make me come over there and cause a scene about you being a lying, cheating deadbeat. You wouldn't. The call ended abruptly. Kevin slammed his fist against the wall. He couldn't believe his sweet, doting mistress, whom he had showered with stolen money, would turn on him so fast. But before he could process this new betrayal, the bathroom door flew open. Tiffany stood there, her eyes wide, her phone in her hand, the recording app open. Aha! So that's it, Big Brother. She screamed. You had money all along. You stole from Emily to set up a secret fund for your mistress, while your mother and I are starving. Are you even human? Her screams brought Brenda running. When she heard what had happened, she went berserk, clawing at Kevin. You ungrateful son. You gave our money to some tramp while your own mother goes hungry? You might as well just kill me now. The family devolved into a chaotic, screaming mess. But in her anger, Tiffany did something incredibly stupid. She sent the recording to me. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Tiffany. Emily, see your husband's true face. I have proof. Can you send me $500 to pay a debt? I opened the audio file. Kevin's confession about Misty, the pregnancy, the $20,000 he'd stolen from our joint account played out in crystal clear audio. I felt nothing. My heart had died the day of the slap. Now, I only felt disgust. And a sense of opportunity. This was the final piece of evidence I needed. Adultery, a child out of wedlock, and embezzlement of marital assets, I murmured, a cold smile on my face. Kevin Johnson. You are finished. I forwarded the audio file to my lawyer. David, add this to the divorce petition. I want him to leave with not just nothing, but with a court order to repay the money he stole. But I wasn't finished. I remembered the small house they were living in. On paper, it was my premarital asset, but I had let him put his name on the title to save face. However, I still had all the bank records and a separate property agreement he had signed years ago when he was drunk and in trouble. My foresight was about to pay off. I would take back that house. I would let his entire, wretched family know what it truly felt like to be homeless. The small, rundown house where the Johnsons were holed up was thrown into chaos early the next morning. It was only 8 a.m. when a loud, insistent banging rattled the front door. Who is it? Brenda shrieked from inside. I told you, we don't have any money. Go away. Open the door. This is official business. A firm voice called back. Kevin's blood ran cold. He thought it was the loan sharks or the police. He shakily opened the door and froze. It wasn't gangsters. It was me, standing there coolly beside David Evans, a team from a moving company, and a representative from the neighborhood association. What are you doing here? Kevin stammered. I took off my sunglasses, my gaze sweeping over him as if he were a complete stranger. I didn't answer him, instead nodding to David. The lawyer stepped forward. Mr. Kevin Johnson, we are here today to execute an asset recovery on behalf of my client, Miss Emily Davis. We are requesting that you and your family collect your personal belongings and vacate these premises immediately. What? Eviction? Brenda stormed out. Are you crazy? This house is in my son's name. You have no right. I'm calling the cops. Kevin, emboldened, puffed out his chest. She's right. This is my property. You can't just throw us out. I smiled, a pitying smile for their ignorance. I pulled a laminated, yellowed document from my purse. Your memory is terrible, Kevin. Do you remember this? I held up the separate property agreement he had signed 4 years ago, on the night he'd caused a car accident and needed a large sum of money to avoid jail time. To bail him out, I had made him sign a legally notarized document stating that the house, which I was buying as an investment, was purchased entirely with my funds, and he was only holding the title in his name as a proxy, with no ownership rights. Read it. Whose signature is this? Whose fingerprint? I pushed the paper into his face. He saw his own signature and went pale. He remembered. In his drunken panic, he had signed it without a second thought. He had assumed I'd forgotten all about it. No, this is invalid. I was drunk. You tricked me. He yelled, trying to snatch the paper. This document is fully notarized and legally binding, David said calmly. Furthermore, we have complete bank records proving 100% of the funds for this house came from Miss Davis's premarital accounts. The court has already issued an emergency order for you to vacate. I'm not going anywhere. This is my house. Brenda shrieked, collapsing to the ground in her signature fake faint. But this time, no one was buying it. The neighbors who had gathered just watched with scorn. There she goes again. Serves them right. Good riddance. Their whispers only made Brenda wail louder, but I had no more patience for their drama. Start moving, I said to the movers. The crew efficiently entered the house and began packing the family's meager belongings into boxes and placing them on the sidewalk. Within 30 minutes, the house was empty. The 3 of them stood on the curb, surrounded by a few pathetic piles of clothes. The locks were changed, and a no trespassing sign was posted. I held the new keys in my hand and looked at Kevin one last time. This is the price for ingratitude, Kevin. You had it all. But your greed and your ego destroyed everything. Don't blame me for being cruel. Blame yourself for being a terrible person. He stood there, defeated, his eyes empty. He had truly lost everything. I turned and walked away, getting into a waiting car. The asset purge was complete. Now, it was time for the final act, the divorce court. On the day of the divorce hearing, Kevin, haggard and broken, still made one last, greedy plea. Your Honor. I demand a 50-over-50 split of all assets. The Mercedes, the mansion, and the small house. They were all acquired during our marriage. My lawyer, David, simply stood up. Your Honor, we have the evidence. He presented the prenuptial purchase documents for the mansion and the small house. He presented the legally executed gift deed for the car, transferring it to my father before the divorce filing. And then, he played the final, damning card. And regarding Mr. Johnson's claims of contribution, we'd like to address his actual financial activities during the marriage. He submitted the audio recording of Kevin confessing to embezzling $20,000 from their joint account to give to his pregnant mistress. The courtroom fell silent as Kevin's own voice filled the air, admitting his theft and infidelity. The judge's face was a mask of stone-cold disapproval. Kevin collapsed into his chair, utterly defeated. The verdict was swift. Divorce granted. All major assets were declared my sole and separate property. Kevin was awarded nothing. In fact, the court ordered him to repay me his half of the stolen $20,000. He walked out of the courthouse with nothing but the clothes on his back and a $10,000 judgment against him. But his nightmare was just beginning. Waiting for him outside was a group of menacing men, the loan shark and his enforcers, there to collect Tiffany's debt. In the ensuing chaos, a receipt fell from Brenda's purse. It was a wire transfer confirmation for a large sum of money, the last of her life savings, sent to Misty, Kevin's mistress. In a desperate attempt to secure her grandchild, she had sent her own money to the very woman who had just conned her son. The realization that she too had been scammed was too much. Brenda collapsed, suffering a massive stroke right there on the courthouse steps. 3 months later. A rainy night in downtown LA. A luxury car pulls up to the valet stand of a five-star restaurant. A valet in a cheap poncho rushes out with an umbrella. "Hurry it up! You're getting my shoes wet." The wealthy patron barks. The valet flinches. "Yes, sir. Sorry, sir." Under the dim light, the valet's face is gaunt and unshaven. It's Kevin. Unable to find any other work due to his ruined reputation, he's now parking the same kind of cars he used to drive. The manager comes out. "Kevin, wipe that car down. Get the tires, too. It's a VIP. One scratch and you're fired." Kevin takes a dirty rag and kneels on the cold, wet pavement. The rain soaks him, but the chill in his heart is colder still. He remembers his father-in-law and how he had forced the old man into this very same position. Karma had come for him. He was now kneeling, just as he'd made my father kneel, wiping the wheels of another man's car for a few dollars an hour. Tears mixed with the rain on his face as he saw his pathetic reflection in the gleaming paint. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, a new life was beginning. I took my father back to his farm. The Mercedes sat in his driveway for a few days, a local curiosity, but my father never touched it. One evening, he said to me, "Emily, this car is beautiful, but I'm an old man. It just brings back bad memories. The old wooden bridge over the river here is falling apart. The kids have to take a rickety boat to get to school every day. What if we sold the car and used the money to build a proper concrete bridge for the whole community?" I was overcome with emotion. My father, the man his son-in-law had called a hick, had a heart bigger than any luxury car. "Of course, Dad. And I'll add to it, to make it the best bridge in the county." And so we did. The Robert Davis Bridge was built. On the day of its dedication, the whole town celebrated. My father, standing on the bridge watching the happy children run across, had a smile on his face more radiant than any chrome finish. He was no longer a shamed old man, he was a local hero. During the construction, I met the project's lead engineer, a kind, quiet man named Mark. He treated my father with a genuine respect Kevin never had. He didn't know or care about my money, he just saw me as the daughter of the good man he had come to admire. One afternoon, he shyly asked if he could visit our farm the next day to teach my father a new grafting technique for his fruit trees. I looked at Mark, then at my father, who was waving at us from a distance. A warmth I hadn't felt in years spread through my chest. It wasn't love, not yet. But it was a beginning. A beginning built on respect, kindness, and decency. My life had turned a new page, and this one was filled with the sound of my father's laughter, a peaceful countryside, and the hope of a true, quiet happiness. And so, my story comes to a close. Through the storms of my life, I've learned that you must never let anyone trample on your dignity or that of your family. Money can be earned again, but self-respect and love are priceless. Be strong enough to let go of those who are not worthy, and trust that when one door closes, a better one will always open.